Soundgarden was one of the biggest bands in the world in the early 1990s. After earning their keep and building a profile on the burgeoning Seattle scene in the 1980s, the group was in the right place at the right time as the Pacific Northwest grunge movement became the biggest thing in music and rewrote the history of rock. Alongside Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and Alice in Chains, Soundgarden ruled MTV and the alternative rock airwaves, although it was a bit more of a traditional metal band than their arena rock and punk-leaning peers. Soundgarden also had what nobody else had: the shredding and relentlessly thundering guitar work of Kim Thayil and the soaring, upper-register vocals of lead singer Chris Cornell. The band often sang of sadness, misery and despondence, topics the group's members knew all too well from their tumultuous personal lives. Here's a look into the harrowing backstory of Soundgarden. Chris Cornell battled mental health issues. Cornell faced one of his first bouts with mental illness at the age of 14, which he believed was triggered by drugs. "I had a bad PCP experience when I was 14 and I got a panic disorder," Cornell told Spin. Unwilling to come clean to his parents or doctor about his illegal behavior, Cornell turned troublingly inward. "So I became more or less agoraphobic because I'd have flashbacks. From 14 to 16, I didn't have any friends. I stayed home most of the time." After settling into a prodigious drinking habit, Cornell started self-medicating with prescription meds when he'd suffer a setback. "When my personal life got out of hand, I just got loaded. So I went through a couple of years of depression again. I didn't eat, I drank a lot, I started taking pills," he said. Eventually Cornell felt better, but he endured an especially bad bout of depression in his 30s. "For me, I always had one foot in this very dark, lonely, isolated world," he told Men's Health. "I got very dark and there was a ton of isolation. I had to do a lot of things I didn't want to do. Like I had to admit that I made all the mistakes I assumed I would never make. I changed pretty much everything you can change." Soundgarden's last show for years was an angry and hostile affair. After touring nearly non-stop for 8 months, the stress of the road got to the members of Soundgarden, as did the creative tensions that naturally come to a band that has been together for a decade. The tour's final stop, Honolulu, Hawaii on February 9, 1997, and boy was it final. The truncated 85-minute show wound up as Soundgarden's last for 13 years. According to a contemporary account from the Honolulu Advertiser, bassist Ben Shepherd was in a foul mood, seemingly having trouble with his equipment. Around halfway through the set, he repeatedly took out his frustrations on a stage light, which he kept kicking, as well as on the audience, to whom he made profane gestures, and to bandmates Kim Thayil and Matt Cameron, at whom he spit. Singer Chris Cornell took Shepherd aside for a talking to, but it didn't appear to do much good. After the band finished playing Blow Up the Outside World, Shepherd threw his bass into the air, flipped the bird to the crowd, and stormed off the stage. 2 months later Soundgarden announced its breakup. Ben Shepherd was broke and homeless. After more than a decade apart, Soundgarden reunited for a slew of concert dates in 2010 and 2011. For lead singer Chris Cornell, returning to the band that made him an icon was a major milestone after leaving the supergroup Audioslave. For Soundgarden bassist Ben Shepherd, it was a homecoming and a way to end a period of insolvency. After Soundgarden broke up in the 90s and Shepherd endured a string of personal and health problems, he got back on his feet and contributed to albums by Queens of the Stone Age's Josh and Screaming Trees' Mark Lanegan, and joined the band Wellwater Conspiracy. All the while, he resented the Soundgarden split. "We should have just relaxed for a while and lived," Shepherd told Spin upon the band's reunion. "I've just been waiting for these old geezers to snap out of it." Shepard's only human. After all, he needed the money. At that point in time, he was recording a solo album but was also technically homeless and in dire financial straits. He'd moved out of his house after breaking up with his partner and spent all his money on his record, and he didn't have much left. I've been sleeping on studio couches and at friends' houses. I'm totally broke. The sad reason why Temple of the Dog formed. Mother Love Bone is one of the great what could have been stories in rock history. In 1990, while many Seattle and grunge-type bands were on the verge of breaking through to mainstream success, major synth group Mother Love Bone split up, owing to the death of lead singer Andrew Wood from a heroin overdose just ahead of the release of the band's only album Apple, according to Rolling Stone. Members Jeff Ament and Stone Gossard started a new band, which would eventually evolve into Pearl Jam. Matt Cameron also played on the demos. He was also drumming for Soundgarden, fronted by Chris Cornell, who was a close friend and roommate of Wood. Cornell had some unused songs he'd written for Wood, so after the untimely death, the singer got together with Ament, Gossard, and Cameron along with Pearl Jam recruits Mike McCready and Eddie Vedder, and recorded a one-off album as a would-be supergroup called Temple of the Dog. The LP Temple of the Dog arrived in spring 1991 on the strength of the hit Hunger Strike, in which Cornell and Vedder trade off singing gut-wrenching vocals.